Hey guys, this is going to be a small tutorial on how to retop and later fur a small creature for Ark Survival Ascended modding. I'll be using Retopping, which I do believe is a paid add-on for Blender, but the basic ideology of retop can be done without the add-on. It's how I used to do it, so I know it's possible. Sorry in advance for mic quality or bad editing. I don't usually make tutorials, but this one was very highly requested, so hopefully you can bear with me and my complete lack of editing software or know-how. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to retop this cat because it's pretty high poly. For a creature that's going to be small, you generally want to aim for about half this much, even less if it's going to have hair cards, because you're not going to need to see the detail underneath the cards anyways, so there's really no point in preserving it. So I usually work with a program called Retopping, or an add-on even. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide all of these extra objects, start with just the body, and I'm going to boot up Retopping. I'm going to start by setting up some basic contours around key points of the creature. Oop, first we want to turn on symmetry. That's important. Kick that up to like 14. You can always add more vertices to it later. And you kind of want to start pretty basic, pretty low poly. You can always subdivide it at a later point. And having different subdivision levels available to you can be really useful as well. So the lower you start, the more flexible you can get, because it's easy to go up from low poly, but it's hard to go down from high poly. And I am sorry if I'm kind of quiet for most of this. I am not used to speaking while I work. Okay, and then for legs, we like to do just 8 vertices. Actually, for 4 toes, I might do 10, just so that it's not so dense at the front and loose at the back. That'll make more sense when I actually do the paw. And I'm gonna do just the front paws to start with. I'm actually gonna exit out of Retopping because you can't really extrude in Retopping. And toes are easier to do when you have access to extrusion. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull that down. I'm gonna make sure, first I'm gonna turn on face project individual elements, and I'm going to just make sure that each of these is lined up with each toe. Bottom of the foot really quick, kind of helps to see the topology. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to grab this face, extrude it, turn off snapping, because snapping is what makes it attach to whatever is behind it. You don't want that on or it does weird shit. pull that out and kind of line it up with the front of the toe. You can turn on loop tools in preferences add-ons up here. Loop tools are really useful for retop. So I can just convert that to a circle, but because it's only got 4 sides, it's just going to turn it into a perfect square. So you don't get any weird lopsidedness. Then I can turn face project snapping back on and really just make sure that that's attached to the front of the toe. And do the same for all the other toes. Want that to be too big or it'll start grabbing what's behind it over there, like that. And then once I've got that done, I can go back into Retop flow, which once you've already got a mesh started, you want to start Retop flow again from edit mode or the modeling tab, and you just click on this little icon right here. And now I can give these a little more topology. Kind of go where it creases in there. And then again where it bulges out. And then one around there too. Exit back out. Gonna hide the body mesh for a second, and just to give these guys a little more topology on the vertical loop, I'm actually going to go ahead and split this up. And that's going to let me do a loop cut through the middle of the toes vertically. Do it on the bottom too. Now, when I hit Control R to create a new loop cut, I can hit K for the knife tool and just connect those up. And now the toes have cleaner topology, or more topology, without also increasing the leg topology, because the legs don't need that much. Just to make sure that the toes, because I did these edits outside of Retop flow, just to make sure that these kind of conform to the shape a little more, instead of having to manually grab each vertice and snap it back to the mesh. I'm just going to add a shrink wrap modifier. I'm going to grab body high. Add a displace. Things are gonna get weird for a second. just go ahead and grab these loops, set them to a vertex group, and then assign that vertex group to both the displace and the shrink wrap. Now I should be able to just kind of nudge those in place. And then I can apply both of those. And get back to what I was doing before in Retopping. So before I do that, I'm gonna grab these, duplicate them to the back feet, kind of try to line them up as best as I can. Definitely get away with close enough on this because, again, we can just grab a shrink wrap modifier, assign the whole foot to a vertex group, shrink wrap the body, kind of hide that to make sure it's not getting wonky anywhere. Shift things around a little bit if it is. Just kind of get it to a place where nothing's really noticeably warping. Can apply that shrink wrap. And now I'm going to get back into Retopping. And now I can kind of further clean that up by grabbing the relax tool and just kind of letting it touch those vertices into a spot that's a little less cramped. Sometimes it does things you don't want, so you gotta kind of be picky. For the most part, it's pretty good at making your edge loops a little cleaner. Because edge loops are important. Your clean edge loops, if they follow the shape of the high poly mesh really well, it means it's going to animate cleaner, especially if you want certain muscles to move in convincing ways, like jiggle physics on dinosaurs with really pronounced thigh muscles. You really want your topology to follow the lines of the muscles, and that's why edge loops are so important, because you really see it in the final product of the animation. Okay, so now I'm going to continue this up. See if I can get it into that armpit. Maybe start with the armpit loop. There we go. And then clean edge loops also just make it infinitely easier to UV unwrap something, so that's another benefit to keeping it all clean from the very start. middle seam, the one that kind of lines up with the middle between the two toes. And I'm going to make sure that that's oriented with the knee. Just kind of want to avoid twists in your topology as well. Same for the back. I'm going to find that middle line and line it up with the middle of the ankle. And then, so long as those two are in place, can use relax to get everything around them more in order. So long as I'm careful not to touch the middle ones that I don't want to move, because the relax AI, for lack of a better word, doesn't know when you want something to stay where it is. You can use tweak as well, and just pull the whole thing over a little bit. Okay, and then another really important thing for clean animation is to give yourself a little more topology around joints. So I'm actually going to grab those and inset them. I'm going to do the same thing on the knee. And once more on the elbow. Just grab my relax tool and let those clean themselves up. This little bit of anatomy right here, this kind of flappy little connection point, you can usually just fill in with a square like that. I'll add another loop there. And then I can grab these 3 squares and inset them. Just kind of let them find that bit of anatomy naturally. And again, we'll let relax clean that up more as well. Honestly, I might even take that out one further. Ends, just because it's a little tight. So I'll just delete all these faces. Do that much instead. That's probably going to behave better. Yeah, there we goodness. Must have accidentally grabbed some topology in a place I didn't want to. It's okay. Just grab that whole edge here, unhide the body, make sure snapping's on, and pull it back out. Okay, now I can kind of fill in these gaps now that I have all my important edge loops kind of in the spot I know I need them to be. This is the part where I would choose to add more loops in certain places. Though I have to keep in mind that because I need this to match up with this, if I added a new one here, I might need to add a new one here, but I won't quite yet. I'll try to fill it in the way it is first. Let's see, how do I want to do that? It'll work. And yeah, it looks like I won't need one because now I have an extra loop here that I can hook up to the extra one that I added on the other side. Back legs can be a little trickier because the area between them tends to be a little thinner than on the front, and you also have to worry about connecting it to the tail. I've still not quite mastered the art of getting that to be clean, but we'll see how it goes. Overall, I might just not have enough topology in this area. So I will make more. These little U-turn edge loops are extremely useful for just adding more topology in areas that you need it without getting it too dense on other areas of the mesh. Knife tool, please work. Thank you. honestly delete the tail so that I'm not trying to connect to something, and then I can just work with what I have already instead of having to worry about making it match up something that already exists. So kind of want your squares to be pretty evenly spaced out for the most part. There are certain areas where it's kind of unavoidable, like of course they're going to be thinner in really confined areas, but you don't want to have like a wide open space and then have like these be doing this. That's bad. Hopefully we don't have an odd number on this loop. I think we do. Nope, 12. Cool. Odd numbers are harder to close. You will wind up with a triangle, which there's not really anything wrong with a triangle. I guess I just have a personal vendetta against them to a point. I like everything to be a nice square, but in the end, the dev kit triangulates everything anyways. Just making sure my symmetry line is completely closed. Go back over the whole body with the relax tool. Let some of these vertices settle in the places that make the most sense for them, but I'm really avoiding like these high detail areas where I already know that I have everything where I want it to be. I'm just hitting these big, broad areas. Especially right here around the stomach. Probably add one more loop to the neck. Let's push that one out so I can split it into thirds cleaner. Okay, now for the head. The head is the hardest part to have like a tried and true method for because most creatures have very different head shapes. But I kind of want to at least make sure that I'm clean going around the ears and around the mouth, and then around the eyes, of course. Let's see, how am I going to do that? I'm going to give myself an extra loop here. So that I can get between these ears a little easier. I think I want to have 3 squares on each side of the ear. They're so diagonal with the general flow of how you would have topology that I might not be able to get quite the clean look I want with that. You have to kind of account for some of that diagonal. So let's just get rid of that and kind of freehand it. Unfortunately, there really isn't a good way to teach this kind of topology work. It's just knowing what's right and what's wrong, how to instinctively solve for more complicated areas. It's 11, I think, if I can do basic math. I'll make it work. Okay, and then I want to make a loop all the way around the edge of the ear. Trying to keep it the same number on both sides, so if I go up 1 on one side, I'll go up 1 on the other side, and keep switching back and forth. Until they meet in the middle. And that's pretty tight right now. It's kind of not really catching the shape of the ear that well, but again, this is the lowest resolution we're going to be working at for this mesh. I'm probably going to subdivide it, so it will catch all that detail on higher subdivisions. And we're going to do the same for the inside, except I'm actually going to take this guy and go in with it first. Now this shape might be a little tricky. But we'll get there. I gotta say, I think ears are my least favorite part to retop. Because they're always a different shape. I already see that if I want that to close easily, I'm gonna have to add another one there. Or possibly even combine these. I think combining them is the way to go. That way now I have 2 here and 2 here, and that's gonna close neatly. Honestly. There we go. Okay. Pretty much the hardest part done. Get around the eyes really quick. To try and start them off with having 2 edges on each side of them, because I can cleanly make a circle out of that, especially on the higher subdivisions. So for now, I'll just close that in with 4 squares. Yeah, this guy's also kind of tight right here. I'm gonna add 2 loops in the same place. I might as well just make it a loop all the way around the neck. Or not all the way around the neck, but attach them to each other. That's what I wanted to do. Confused myself a little bit there. Oops. It's just a case of kind of trying to follow some of these shapes. Which is especially important in the face because faces tend to be the part that expresses the most in animation, so you kind of want to be able to deform the mesh in places where the face would naturally deform. Close the nose off. Is that gonna work? Give it one more loop. Not there. The lip is more likely to need more topology than the nose. When in doubt, add more topology to the part that's going to move more. And I'll probably put a triangle right there. My one singular triangle. Strokes is a nice tool for this one because I can now just go in with this pen tool and follow this whole line, maybe from a slightly different angle, so I can catch a little more of that shape. Can shift scroll down to remove that extra loop that I don't really want. Highlight this whole edge. Do the same thing. I can highlight the whole thing. Maybe get away with this. Nope, not yet. tiles to fill in the rest. Let the relax tool handle this. It's a lot easier than trying to stick your camera inside the mouth and figure it all out yourself. Okay, that should be all that I need Retopping for. Now I'm just gonna manually go in. I'm gonna inset these. That's the hotkey I. Give them just a few loops to start with. Say this is only 3K triangles, well, 4K, which is absurdly low for an Ark model. Let's see what it puts us at when we subdivide it. 14K. 58 is a pretty good starting point for a really small creature. I would even possibly aim lower than that, but what we can do is we can subdivide it just once. Add a shrink wrap to the body object. And we can kind of go in here, and if we want to try and get it a little lower, we can delete a few loops, dissolve edges, slide that one over to even them back out. You want to make sure that you're only dissolving loops that go all the way through something. Never delete one that ends on a corner, because when you dissolve it, it will result in an n-gon, and n-gons are bad. An n-gon is just a polygon with more than 4 sides. Okay, so now when I subdivide that twice, it's a little lower. I can probably find others to get rid of if I commit this subdivision. Add a new one. The legs don't usually need quite so many loops around the areas where they would never bend. Bones don't bend in those spots. Keep it pretty dense on the tail. Honestly, what I might do is disregard that second subdivision and instead go up from here manually. Adding loops in places where it's not quite dense enough. Because overall, for something as small as a cat, it doesn't need to be that much denser than this. A lot of people kind of get hooked on the fact that because UE5 can handle high poly models so much better, that they can just get away with having something look really high poly, and they think it's going to look out of place if it isn't really high poly. But if it's capturing all the detail of your high poly mesh, especially once you bake it, and it's going to be mostly covered in fur cards anyways, it really doesn't need to be high poly. You can get away with a low poly model. Like, let's be real. It's going to be like this big in game, with your player like this big. You're going to be looking down at it most of the time. It doesn't need to be dense. So I'm going to call that good for the retop. Going to apply our shrink wrap, delete displace, and in mirror I'm going to turn on clipping, go into modeling, going to select the whole middle seam, turn off snapping, and I'm just going to zip it up by pushing the whole thing one direction and then pushing it the other direction, and clipping will fuse it together all the way around so you don't have any holes in the mesh. Okay, and then we're not going to apply the mirror modifier yet because it makes UV unwrapping a lot easier to symmetrize if it's not applied yet. So I'm going to cut this video here, and then we'll get into UV unwrapping in the next one. Okay, so UV unwrapping. Since all of our edge loops are so clean, this is going to be really stinking fast. You hold Shift-Alt to select loops, and then mark seam. You have to be in edge mode to mark a seam. If you're in vertice mode, you don't have the option. So, something to keep in mind. Go around the hip. This is just like my basic quadruped loop setup. For creatures with a pretty short neck, I don't usually put one around the head. I'll just let the head be part of the neck. And then I'll probably split this here. Ooh, hello. Got some weird stuff going on there on the ear where the shrink wrap didn't really catch it right. I suppose I should check between the toes too. Yeah, sometimes the shrink wrap modifier pushes things around just a little too much. They'll snap to surfaces you didn't intend for them to snap to. You can kind of just nudge them back to where they're supposed to go. So long as you're not like moving something really far away, it'll still bake just fine. Or if you want peace of mind, you can turn the high poly back on and turn snapping back on and move it that way. Sometimes what I'll even do is use the smooth tool on certain areas. So like say on the ear here, I'll just select this really small area here, smooth it a little bit, and then press G just to let snapping recalculate where it sits from my camera angle. And I'll repeat that a few times until the whole thing is kind of where I want it. Go at it from a few different camera angles. Yeah, for between the toes, it'd be kind of hard to see what you're doing. But the good news is, if you can't see it, the player probably can't see it either. So, doesn't matter too terribly much that it's kind of tight in there, just so long as nothing is over on the side it's not supposed to be on. Okay. too sidetracked. We'll do one around the tail. Let's see. Some around the ears. Probably this spot right here. Then I can hide the one here. Hide the one here. And then just select that whole thing, mark seam, and then unhide with Alt-H. Do one around the mouth. Don't usually need one around the eye. It can be beneficial to do one on larger creatures where you want the eye to have a lot of detail on it on your texture map. Because then what you can do is when you UV unwrap it, you can select the eye socket and scale it up manually. And it's just going to have a lot more detail than the head. But this is a cat. Nobody's going to get that close to its eye. Doesn't really need it. And then we'll do one around the bottom of the paw, or the middle of the paw. On either of these, and then hide that so that we can select this whole one cleanly without going all the way around the other side of the leg. And same for this one. And that should be all you need. Yeah. This is not the greatest repack in the world. What I might do is instead of unwrapping my leg here, clear that seam and just go. Ooh, hello. Guess I'll manually select that because I don't feel like figuring that out. And I'll just cross it over there. Let's see if that unwraps any cleaner. Yeah, that's much better. And there's quite a bit of empty space, but we still have other objects that we need to retop and UV, so those will get packed into those tiny spaces. Let's see, claws. These were Z-remeshed, which is usually pretty clean at doing small objects like claws. Might just be able to get away with, not subdivide. Unsubdividing them by 2, see if that keeps it clean. Yeah. Go ahead and delete half of those. Add a mirror modifier. Normally I'll remove the backs of claws just to keep topology lower, polycount lower. But I'm assuming this is going to animate to have retractable claws, so we'll have the back showing just so that if this animates, it's never going to show a hole. And then the easiest way to UV unwrap a claw is to grab an edge that ends at a corner and just mark that as a seam. Not that one though. Ooh, this guy's just got a spiral loop. which is not necessarily bad, it just means it's a little more annoying to UV unwrap. That's why I tend to avoid Z-remesh, is because it's pretty good at producing spiral loops. But for really tiny meshes like claws, it is just fine. This guy must have had a spiral on the very tip of it. Just decimating it kind of treated it a little poorly. I might clean that up. Keep it a little more professional looking. Easy way to do that would honestly be just to duplicate that vertice there, move it down ever so slightly so it doesn't fuse back to the original one, and I'm just going to delete all of this crap. Then extrude that down. Fill it and fuse that back to that original vertice. And then these guys can get smoothed. And that's much cleaner. Okay, that's the claws. Just unwrap those really quick, make sure they're clean. Looking good. Eyes. I will go ahead and grab the Gigantoraptor eyes. I just have them exported from the kit. Oh gosh, where are they? There they are. And we're just gonna line those up as best we can. Oh crap. Still had snapping on. Guess not that it really matters. I'm gonna have to resymmetrize these anyways. Where am I? Edit mode. I'll just go ahead and delete this one. Ooh, gosh. Turn off individual origins, since the refractive eyes are technically two objects. Line this up with the original mesh as best you can. It's not going to get baked. You don't bake these, so it doesn't really matter. You just don't want it to sit too far outside of the eyelid. And then turn that off, turn back on the body, and you want the UV to be facing pretty much directly out, so I'm going to affect only origins and set this to the best of my ability directly in the center of the eye. Normally, if you do this in modeling, it works just fine, but because actually that is working relatively fine. Sometimes it can get kind of wonky, working off of the edit mode bounding box center because they don't have even topology from front to back to refractive eyes. So you wind up getting the eye kind of like going off skew, and it'll wind up like a little bit out. This one's behaving for some reason, but in the case that it wasn't, I would edit the origin point manually outside of edit mode, and then just turn on wireframe and orient it correctly from here. You always want the refractive eye UV to be pointing directly out from the eye socket, not pointing forward like you'd think, because refraction is going to naturally point it in the direction you want it to go. Ooh, that loop got kind of ugly, didn't it? We'll fix that in a sec. Okay, and then I want to mirror that. Apply all transformations so that my origin point is behaving for the mirror. Wow, that looks really stupid. And then turn off wireframe, go into UV editing. Ooh, I want to apply the mirror modifier. I want to select only the left eye. Select the UV and mirror X. And that's going to make sure that they still function, the refractiveness in kit. So let's fix that eye loop really quick. I should just be able to... Oh, wait, this is the old one, not the new one. Okay, yeah. Actually, we're fine. I was looking at the old one. Let's see, so we got the claws done. We got the eyes done. Let's do the tongue. Tongue also zero meshed really cleanly, so we're just going to unsubdivide it. Honestly, just do it here. Ooh. Maybe not. You love it when, even though the edge loops are clean, Blender still, for some reason, does not want to decimate it cleanly. So I may actually just need to manually go in and select every other loop. Dissolve edges. I want that to be symmetrized. Yeah, much better. Okay. And now we can just, again, delete half the mesh. Makes UVs easier. Create a loop along the edge. And that's the tongue done. Just to see how it projects. Perfectly fine. And the teeth. Teeth are usually just time-consuming. These guys are not symmetrical either. What I'm probably gonna do is just kind of scoot that over a little bit so it's past the symmetry line. Select that whole thing. Turn on mirror, turn on clipping, select that again, and scoot it back over. There we go. Okay, and then what's the poly count like on these guys? 13,000. It's a little high. Let's see if they decimate cleanly. Almost. Not particularly, though. Oh gosh, and we've crashed. 1 second. Okay, we're back. My Blender 3.5 is crashing for some reason, so I'm now on 3.6. Only difference is I don't have Retopping flow anymore, but I think I'm done using it. Did we keep our UVs? No, okay, well. Didn't save the work on the tongue. Of course. I guess that's fine. I'll just do it again. Okay. Back to the teeth. These guys are pretty high poly for teeth, but because they're not decimating cleanly, I might just do the same thing I did with the tongue and manually remove a few loops. Oh, that's right, I have to remirror these guys again. Because they're Z-remeshed, I might not be able to manually dissolve very many loops because there's a lot of spirals, and spirals do not dissolve cleanly, they create n-gons. So I'll do the ones that I can and leave the ones that I can't. Because we've been so good about keeping the poly count pretty low everywhere else, we can afford to have it be kind of unusually high in some places where it just can't be cleaned up easily. I could retop these. They don't need it. That's fine. Close enough. And then again, because they're spirals, they're going to be kind of difficult to UV. Unwrap. We'll just kind of try to find a clean path. Manually select a few until they meet back up. Oh gosh. so for stuff like that, select those two and actually hide them. And we'll just go around that one. Because these have seams in kind of wonky places, it will cause just the tiniest little bit of texture warping when it bakes. The resolution might be a little bit off, which is a big deal on large creature parts. You would never want that to happen on the cat itself, but teeth. You will never ever see it, and oftentimes it's free weathering. It's just gonna look like, I don't know, plaque buildup or something. So you don't have to worry about it too much. Whoa, clean loop. Crazy. Check the unwrap on those. Got kind of a weird one there. I can turn on UV sync. Select that and pretty much just immediately find it here. Yep, I just missed a little bit there. Much better. Okay, so now everything is unwrapped. Grab all of these. And what is that? Ah, that's the old eyes. Okay. Definitely don't need those anymore. make sure you don't include the refractive eyes in that, because you don't want to mess with the refractive UVs that are already on it. That's already set up for refraction, so you don't want to recalculate it in any way. But everything else can all go on the same UV map. That means that you only have to include one texture. It's going to save on file space. For larger creatures, you can do 2. Depending on material setup, you can either do 2 separate textures, all in this first UV space, or you can unpack them onto UDIMs. But don't have to worry about that at all for this. Real quick, I'm gonna just apply all transforms, make sure everything's the right scale. Yep, looks like it is. And one little trick of the trade I like to do is move some of this up a little bit so that I have some more room to work. Ooh, I'm gonna turn off proportional editing, because that's gonna move stuff around that we don't want it to move around. And just move that up. Move all that up. Oh, did I keep the eye seam? My little example eye seam. Oops. Okay, well. Grab everything again. Now move it out of the way. And what I'm gonna do is find the face, the ears, and the mouth. So that's this, 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 and this. I'm gonna pull them aside. Gonna select 2 about right there. Turn on proportional editing. And edit my proportional circle so that it's not touching that outermost seam. And this is going to make it so that I can scale up the head. And the texture is going to be higher quality on the face subsequently. But I don't want to affect this next seam because I want it to match the resolution of its adjacent island. So the pixels here are still going to be the same size, even though this will be higher resolution. And that's just a nice little trick for getting more detail on your creature's face. So now I just gotta manually squeeze these back in because they're bigger now. But there's plenty of room on this UV map, so it's not going to be an issue at all. And in fact, because there's so much room on this UV, I didn't pack the teeth in at all, did I? No, I did. That's fine. Select just the teeth, just the claws. Grab all of those. Let's go ahead and unwrap them again. so much smaller than the claws. Okay, well. Can fix that easily. Just repack them individually. I guess it's just the little itty bitty teeth compared to the big ones. It's throwing me off. It's fine. Move those aside. Make sure those are moved aside. Select everything again. And now I can manually scale and pack these back in a lot larger than they were automatically being packed, so that they will keep more detail. They don't need to be that big. It doesn't quite make sense for a tooth to have as much resolution as a paw. What is this? What are you? You're the tongue. Tongue can also get scaled up a little bit. What are you? You're the other side of the tongue. Those should have been scaled up together so the resolution stays the same. Crazy. There we go. Now, because they're so skinny, I can pack them into some of this really unused space. Save myself a headache of packing more unusual shapes into those spaces. These to make a little more sense. Just give myself more room to manually pack these teeth in. There's fancy plugins that will pack UVs for you really nicely automatically. I don't use them because I enjoy this part. Feels like doing a puzzle a little bit. But they do exist if you don't enjoy doing it. I'm kind of insane, so I get it that a lot of people don't really like doing this at all. And that's just Control plus sign to select more of an object. I'll do that when the vertices are a little too close together for me to grab with my C brush. Only really works on objects that are floating though. Like if I were to do it on the foot, it's gonna start grabbing the leg too. Never mind, it only does that in proportional editing mode. I lied to you, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Stick these guys in wherever. And that's not the tightest UV map ever, but it's utilizing space well enough. Okay, now gonna want to delete that, and we're gonna rename these to low. Just called body. Body, low. And it's just gonna make sure that you can bake this cleanly with each object, baking to only its high counterpart on the high poly, so that your curvature and your normals aren't intersecting and creating artifacts. once over on this guy. Just make sure that everything is looking clean. Check in all the tight spots, like between the toes. But I think this is good for retop. Just one last thing really quick. I'm gonna make sure that it's set up for Substance Painter properly, so go ahead and remove all these materials. We can rename this one to Maine Coon Eye Refractive. And then create Maine Coon Matte. It's gonna bother me. And anything that is on the same UV as other things is going to get assigned the same material. And that way, when you export textures in Substance Painter, it all exports to the same image. Because Substance Painter will bake everything to individual materials if they're assigned to individual material slots. So, because all of these, except for the eyes, are assigned to Maine Coon material, they will all export onto one image for everything sharing a UV. And that is retop and UVs. Next will be for cards.